Alrighty, Broncos country. Looks like we are live, but you guys know the drill by now. We got to let the stream breathe for just a second here and make sure that everything is nice and stable all across the YouTube platform. Welcome in, Broncos country, to this 10:30 at night Denver Broncos Syndicate live stream as the trade deadline is approaching. It's on November 4th. We are getting super duper close. I believe the Denver Broncos can win a Super Bowl this season. However, their roster might be a couple moves away from truly being in contention. You think about the tight end position, possibly the wide receiver position, inside linebacker. I believe they could even add to their interior defensive line. There are a plethora of moves that the Denver Broncos could look to make ahead of the NFL trade deadline. And today, I wanted to do a little bit of a synopsis of some of these moves and touch on pretty much everybody that the Denver Broncos could look to add as we get towards the trade deadline. But before we do that, guys, I want to go ahead and give a few minutes for some people to start streaming on in here. And while that happens, we'll go ahead and take care of some housekeeping matters. If you could just do me a big favor and smash the like button on this stream as well as subscribe to the channel, I would really appreciate it. Those are both free and easy ways to show your support. It helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out, and it helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. Additionally, if you guys want to go above and beyond in supporting the channel, please consider becoming a channel member today. I would really appreciate it. It's not mandatory whatsoever, but if you guys want some extra perks and incentives in exchange for helping me out, helping this channel grow, help improve the production quality of this content, I would really appreciate if you would consider it. Again, the link is in the description below. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump into the meat and potatoes of today's video here. And I want to go ahead and start off with this report from Diana Rossini saying that the Broncos are monitoring the tight end market even after signing Mercedes Lewis to the practice squad. So we'll remember that the Denver Broncos, they lost Nate Atkins for at least the next few weeks, and they lost Lucas Kroll for probably the rest of the season. That means that they are in line literally for some help at inline tight end. So Mercedes Lewis is going to come in and help that problem. However, I believe the Broncos still have shortcomings in the receiving game at that position outside of Evan Ingram. We've talked about it many times on this channel. Evan Ingram is more of a big slot player than he is a true inline tight end. The Broncos need a Y inline tight end that can start alongside Evan Ingram. That way Denver can operate more into tight end sets. So for my, at least by my estimation, I believe the Denver Broncos are going to be looking for somebody who can fit that bill. The guys who immediately come to mind include David Njoku, Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson. Those are the three big names that could be available at the trade deadline at inline tight end. We got C3 Fly in the house. Good to see you, saying what's up. I was hoping for Chris Olave. Long shot, but still. I do believe that Chris Olave is at least going to receive some calls to the New Orleans Saints, but I don't know if he's going to get any actual legitimate interest because of what New Orleans might want for him. New Orleans is probably going to want a first-round pick for Chris Olave. It's going to take a lot to pry him away from New Orleans, so I don't know if he's going to be available for the price that Denver is willing to spend. We've got D in the house saying, I honestly believe this is all talk and we will not end up getting anyone. Watch Tuesday. I understand that thought process from Broncos country, especially based on the history of Sean Payton's Broncos. You think about 2023, everybody thought they were going to be sellers at the deadline, and Sean Payton stood pat. Last season, some thought they were going to be buyers. I know that we talked about that quite a bit here on Broncos Syndicate, but they ended up staying pat. They did make a sell move. They traded Baron Browning to the Arizona Cardinals because they knew that Browning wasn't going to be a part of their future plans. But this year, things are different. This year, the Denver Broncos have a legitimate chance to win a Super Bowl. And in my opinion, it might be their best chance to win a Super Bowl with all the parity in the AFC. One of the franchise quarterbacks, Joe Burrow, is injured. Then you've got the Kansas City Chiefs. They started off a little slow. They're getting back on track now, but I still think the Broncos can beat the Chiefs. I believe they can beat the Bills. The Ravens are vulnerable right now. So I believe that the Denver Broncos can make a move that would put them over the top, and I think they should do that if they have the opportunity. We've got Rodom 303 in the house saying we need a catching tight end. I firmly agree. You guys know that I have been preaching for a true inline tight end here on Broncos Syndicate for the last 3 seasons practically. Denver hasn't had a complete inline tight end ever since I started covering the team, and even dating back to since I've just been a fan of the team, I can't remember the last time that the Denver Broncos had a complete inline tight end. They've been drafting these big slot tight ends that are pure receivers, but they offer nothing in the block game. You think about Noah Fant, Greg Dulcich. They brought in Evan Ingram as a free agent. All of these tight end acquisitions are not going to solve your inline tight end problems. It's kind of a running gag here on the channel. Adam Troutman, you look up the definition of mid, and his picture is going to come up in the dictionary. I don't think that Adam Troutman is doing it enough at that inline tight end position. I don't think he's cutting it whatsoever. So that's a position that I strongly believe the Denver Broncos need to address. David Njoku would be my top target. Cleveland has an emerging young tight end in Harold Fannin, but the Browns like to run a lot of 12 personnel. They like to run a lot of 2 tight end sets. They might not be willing to part ways with David Njoku. However, Njoku might not be in their long-term plans either, so they could stand to get some draft capital for him now. It's kind of the same situation with Mark Andrews. He might not be in the future plans for the Baltimore Ravens. They could stand to get some draft capital for him right now. As far as TJ Hawkinson, I'm a little bit surprised that he's been listed as available, especially considering that Minnesota is trying to take the rest of the season to develop J.J. McCarthy and see what they have in him. Why trade away a reliable weapon in the receiving game? However, some Vikings fans have said that Hawkinson doesn't look the same after he suffered that knee injury in 2023, so that could be a reason why Minnesota would look to move on from him. We got Benjamin in the house saying, I'm worried because Riley Moss ain't doing the job. I would love another DB. I know that Riley Moss is the most polarizing player here in Broncos country. You either love his game or you hate his game. I am in the former category. I've been one of the strongest Riley Moss defenders here on this channel. He is in the perfect position more often than not when he gives up completions. There's no defending a perfect throw and a perfect catch. Riley Moss is one of the most targeted corners in the NFL because he plays alongside the best corner in the game in Pat Surtain. Teams are not going to go after Pat Surtain. As a result, they're going to go after Riley Moss quite a bit. He actually gives up a sub 50% completion rate in coverage. And I know people also want to talk about the pass interference calls. At least 60% of those calls are bullshit calls that are purely based off of reputation and aren't based off anything else. Again, he's in perfect position. He's not grabbing. Sometimes he gets beaten. He's got to grab. But I'd say at least 6 out of 10 of these pass interference calls have been absolute bull crap. And the Denver Broncos will agree with you in that area. Like, you ask any of the players, the coaches, pretty much anybody in that building will tell you that those calls are bull crap. So I believe Riley Moss is playing fine. The player who I think is going to be under the spotlight these next few weeks is Chris Abrams-Draine as Pat Surtain's out. Teams are going to start targeting Chris Abrams-Draine. We saw that a little bit in the second half of the Dallas Cowboys game. Dak Prescott targeted Chris Abrams-Draine 5 times, and Chris Abrams-Draine gave up 5 completions. So that might be the player that's going to be under the spotlight for these next few weeks. Not Riley Moss, but Chris Abrams-Draine. We got Michael Ronquillo in the house all the way from Tucson, Arizona. Good to see you, Michael, one of our channel members and a dedicated member of Broncos country. He says the LA Dodgers won back-to-back World Series championships. Yep, I saw that. I'm not the hugest baseball fan, but I'm all for parity in any sports league. I don't like to see a team just stockpile their roster by spending a bunch of money that other teams aren't going to have the opportunity to spend. So I'm somebody who believes that the MLB needs a salary cap just for pure parity's sake, but again, not really a baseball fan. It's not my sport, so honestly, I could kind of care less about the Dodgers. Another player that I want to talk about here, and I actually did talk about this player a little bit in a previous video, and that is T'Vondre Sweat of the Tennessee Titans. There we go. So, according to Diana Rossini in this same report that we just brought up earlier, teams around the league have called other teams about the teams around the league have called the Tennessee Titans about players on their roster. It's 10:46 at night. I'm tired. I cannot talk right now. But T'Vondre Sweat, Arden Key, Draymond Jones, and Tony Pollard are those four players. I don't believe they'd be interested in Arden Key. They wouldn't be interested in a reunion with Draymond Jones, and I don't believe they'd be interested in Tony Pollard. But T'Vondre Sweat could be an interesting one. He is 6'4" and 366 pounds. He is a ginormous, beefy nose tackle, and the Broncos have needed a player like that for a long time. They haven't had one since Pot Roast back in the day, Terrence Knighton. Somebody who can just stand there, clog multiple gaps in the run game. I believe T'Vondre Sweat would be a perfect fit for the Denver Broncos. I made a pretty strong argument for it in that video that I put out. He's so... I dropped my phone. Dang it. I'm going to reload real quick. Apologies for that, guys. I dropped my phone. Anyway, a reason why I believe that T'Vondre Sweat would be such a perfect fit for the Denver Broncos is because he's so young. He's only 24 years old. It would, in essence, be like getting a draft pick here. You'd be drafting a young player who's only played in 20 NFL games. If you want to hear a further argument as to why I think T'Vondre Sweat would make sense, I'm going to direct you to that video that we put out earlier today on Broncos Syndicate. Michael says that the Dolphins are listening for trade offers on Jalen Waddle. I would be interested in Waddle. I made a video about him as well. I believe that was yesterday. And Jalen Waddle, he could fill a long-term role in this offense as the Z receiver, the number 2 receiver for this team. You've got Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims, who more profile as slot guys as opposed to outside Z guys. So in terms of that fit, Jalen Waddle would make sense. But a report came out tonight, I'm not sure exactly where it was from, I saw it on Twitter, that the Miami Dolphins are willing to listen to offers, but they are not interested in making a deal that doesn't include at least a first-round pick. So we'll see if the Denver Broncos want to give up that much draft capital. I don't believe they do. Another wide receiver that we heard more on tonight is Rashid Shaheed of the New Orleans Saints. Rashid Shaheed could be had for a third-round pick. I don't know if Denver would be willing to spend that much on a guy like Rashid Shaheed when they've already got 2 speedy wide receivers in Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin. I've talked about Rashid Shaheed before because I do think he would be a nice fit in terms of being that speedy receiver. He could be the Z, and then you've got Marvin Mims and you've got Troy Franklin as your slot guys. So it's that type of receiver that I think the Denver Broncos are looking for, a Z receiver, which is why I've suggested Rashid Shaheed, which is why I've suggested Jalen Waddle, and it's why I've suggested Jacoby Myers as well. Myers is not very likely because he plays for a division rival in the Las Vegas Raiders, but those other 2 guys could be at least a little bit more realistic, but I don't know if the Miami Dolphins would be willing to take anything less than a first-round pick for Jalen Waddle, and I don't know if Denver wants to give up a third-round pick for Rashid Shaheed. I want to go ahead and bring in this chart from Steve Patton of Patton Analytics because I know a lot of people are wondering why I'm pounding the table for the Denver Broncos to make a move at skill position. So this chart is expected points lost due to drops. basically how many points are you losing from drops at the NFL level. And you've got Bo Nix here, who is the third highest quarterback in terms of points lost from drops. So this means that Broncos receivers are leaving a lot of meat on the bone. We see that with guys like Cortland Sutton, Troy Franklin, Evan Ingram, Marvin Mims. All of these guys have had some frustrating drops. And yes, I will acknowledge that some of this is on Bo Nix for having bad ball placement. But I'd say for every one throw that Bo has bad placement on, there are 2 or 3 other throws that get dropped by the wide receivers. So this is why I believe that the Denver Broncos need to make a move at skill position. We've got Dylan Earl in the house. Good to see you, Dylan. Hope you are doing well. All right, guys, so those are the primary players that I think the Denver Broncos could be interested in. Some other names I've heard include Jordan Brooks, linebacker for the Dolphins. He could make some sense if the Broncos want to bolster that position. There have been a couple of other linebacker names. I can't recall off the top of my head, but Jordan Brooks is probably the biggest name for the Denver Broncos in terms of getting an upgrade at that off-ball linebacker position if they want to look towards moving on from Alex Singleton. I'm curious, Broncos country, are there any other trade candidates that you guys think the Denver Broncos could be interested in? I remember the joke, Earl. I remember the joke. Yes, Fox tomorrow, 11 a.m. As you guys know, we always stream the road games here on Broncos Syndicate. Tomorrow is another road game, so we will be doing the live stream. It starts at 10:50 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, about 10 minutes before kickoff. And then before that, we'll be doing a game preview, a little pregame show. So hope you guys can tune in for that. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and start winding this thing down. But before we do, if you could just do me a massive favor and smash the like button on the stream, as well as subscribe to the channel, I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are both free and easy ways to show your support. It helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out, and it helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country, just like you and me. I'm just checking here, guys, because we are getting very close to one of our subscription goals. We are getting super duper close to 7,400 subscribers. So if you guys have not subscribed to the channel yet, I would really appreciate if you would do so. We need just 16 subscribers to get to 7,400. I believe that we will even get close to 7,500 by tomorrow. But again, guys, if you have yet to subscribe, I would really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. It just takes a second to do. All right, guys. And until next time, I'm your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.